Have you ever looked around and realized no one's coming? Not to fix it, not to save you, not to understand, just no one. Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you felt it. In that moment where everything broke and the world kept spinning like nothing happened. You waited for the call, the check-in, the "Are you okay?" It never came. And that silence was louder than any scream. That's when it hits you. This life, it's yours, entirely, unforgivingly, undeniably. No one owes you healing. No one's assigned to rescue you. Even the people who love you most can't walk into your mind and pull you out. It's on you. And that truth, it either breaks you or builds you. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius didn't cry for help when the empire burned. He picked up his pen and wrote about control, not of the world, but of himself. Epictetus didn't beg for mercy when enslaved. He turned inward and found power no one could steal. Seneca didn't fold under pressure. He taught others how to stand, even when life pushed back harder. They all knew. The moment you expect the world to fix you, you've already given it too much power. So don't wait for the apology. Don't wait for the world to notice. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Build in the silence. Train in the dark. Show up when no one's clapping. Because that's when it counts. You are the answer you've been waiting for. And once you understand that, you stop looking for saviors. You start becoming one. There comes a point where you stop explaining your pain to people who never felt it. Not because you're angry, but because you've learned. Some things are meant to be understood only by the one who lived them. You used to think if you just said it right, they'd get it. They'd care. They'd change. But they didn't. And they won't. Because most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply, to minimize, to twist it back to them. So you learn to go quiet. Not because you're weak, but because your healing deserves better company. The Stoics understood this silence. It wasn't cowardice, it was command. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." You don't need to explain your shift. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need permission to protect your peace. When someone doesn't respect your silence, they never respected your words either. So let them misunderstand you. Let them label you. Let them talk while you work, grow, focus. This is the power of detachment, not indifference, but discipline. You still feel, you still care, you still love. But now, you love yourself more. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you free. Think back to the moment you needed them most. Not just wanted, needed. Not to fix everything, just to show up, to stand beside you, to say, "You're not alone in this." But they didn't. They ghosted your pain, changed the subject, told you to stay positive when you were trying not to drown. And that moment split something inside you, a quiet fracture, not loud enough to scream, but deep enough to change how you trust, how you speak, how you let people in. That's the moment the Stoics would say, "Now your training begins." Because pain is the first teacher, silence is the second. And you're the student who decides whether to fold or forge. Jake was 26 when his world collapsed, lost his job, got ghosted by the one person he trusted, Even his friends stopped replying to messages that were obviously cries for help. He waited. 2 days, then 4, then 10, and no one came. So he did the only thing left. He got up. He stopped checking his phone, stopped refreshing his inbox, stopped expecting someone else to validate what he already knew inside, that he was worth rebuilding, not for revenge, not for attention, but because the alternative, staying broken, staying small, was no longer an option. That's the fire. That's the fuel. And you've got it too. Don't wait for your own Jake moment to find it. Start now. Let this be the moment you stop hoping they'll show up and start becoming the person who no longer needs them to. If this lands where it hurts, that's not a wound. That's your will waking up. Subscribe. Not because you need more content, but because this space reminds you, you were always the answer. There's something sacred about what you build alone. Not the image, not the story, the work, the quiet, lonely, brutal work that nobody claps for. That 5 a.m. breath when your body aches, but your mind says, get up anyway. That journal page you fill instead of texting someone who never replied. That one glass of water instead of pouring something stronger. No audience, no applause, just you showing up for yourself. That's what Stoicism really is, not pretending to feel nothing, but choosing not to be ruled by it. They think you're cold now. They call you distant, detached, selfish, because you stopped over-explaining, stopped fixing what wasn't yours to fix, stopped showing up for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. But that's not selfishness. It's clarity. You're not disappearing. You're reappearing back into your own life. The Stoics didn't teach escape. They taught engagement with what's real, with what you can control, with the only person you're guaranteed to be with forever, yourself. And maybe that's why this kind of strength scares them. Because when you stop needing them, they can't use you, can't guilt you, can't manipulate the version of you that needed their validation to feel real. But now you validate yourself in silence, in boundaries, in peace. And that kind of peace is intimidating. So let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them miss you from the distance you chose, because they will. And when they do, they won't be missing your attention. They'll be missing your power. They'll say you've changed, that you don't care like you used to, that you're distant, hard, unreachable. Let them say it, because they never knew the version of you that cried in silence, that showed up for everyone and burned quietly in the background, that bent over backwards just to be included. They never met that you, because they never looked past their own reflection long enough to see you. And now that you've stepped away, now that you've drawn the line, they confuse your boundaries for betrayal. But Stoicism isn't about being heartless. It's about protecting your heart from places that proved they never earned it. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And sometimes, freedom looks like distance, silence, walking away from what keeps you small. You're not cold. You're just done performing. You're not distant. You're just closer to yourself. This isn't about ego. It's about energy. And you finally realized you don't owe your presence to anyone who wouldn't show up if the roles were reversed. They call that selfish? Fine. Let them. Because peace, real peace, is worth the misunderstanding. And here's the part they'll never say out loud. They notice your absence. They feel your silence. They replay the last thing you said and wonder what you meant. But they'll never admit it, because pride is louder than regret. That's okay, because you don't need an apology to forgive. You don't need closure to move on. You don't need to be seen to validate your own growth. You're not waiting to be understood anymore. You're becoming what they never saw coming. And that is power. There's a moment they don't talk about, the quiet shift from chasing to choosing. When you stop needing validation, stop performing, stop begging for attention from people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in. One ignored message at a time. One birthday they forget. One favor they expect, but never return. And then, you just stop. Not out of anger, but clarity. You stop explaining your standards. You stop overcompensating for their absence. You stop giving them access to a version of you they never earned. And suddenly, they notice. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the version of you that tolerated their neglect. That's when you know you've shifted. This is what the Stoics meant by mastering your own mind. Not that you stop caring, but that you stop collapsing. You feel everything, but you act from awareness, not emotion. Seneca once wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." He didn't mean existing. He meant living without the approval of people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You stop orbiting their needs and start honoring your own. Your schedule changes, your habits shift. You move in silence. You say no without over-explaining. You stop proving your worth to people who made you feel like you had to earn basic respect. And from the outside, you look different, distant, not like you used to be. But from the inside, you've never felt more like yourself. Because the real you was never the version they accepted. It was the version you kept hiding to keep the peace. And now, you've realized peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of self. At first, it's terrifying. The silence, the stillness, the absence of voices you once thought you needed to feel real. You look around and realize there's no one left to impress, no one left to chase, no one left to convince, just you. And in that moment you can do one of two things: collapse from the quiet, or rise because of it. The Stoics believed in solitude, not as isolation, but as alignment. Alignment with your values, your rhythm, your truth. You've spent years outsourcing your worth to lovers, to family, to followers, to friends who only called when they needed a version of you that was easy to consume. And now you walk alone, and it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like peace. Because in the quiet, you hear your real voice. Not the edited version, not the filtered performance. Just the raw, untamed thoughts that never had space to breathe when you were busy being who they needed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And this is yours. You sit in that cafe by yourself. Take that walk with no one texting you back. Close the door to your room, light a candle, and write something that no one else will ever read. Not for likes, not for applause, but because you finally remembered that you are your own witness, that your life matters even if no one claps, that your effort counts even if no one's watching, and that your presence is enough. Not because someone said it, but because you decided to stop needing permission to take up space. You'll be tempted to reach back, to explain, to soften the edges of your silence so they don't feel bad. But don't. Not out of pride, but out of respect for how far you've come. Because you didn't get here by being loud. You got here by being intentional, by choosing stillness over chaos, boundaries over begging, presence over pleasing. You no longer perform for attention. You live for alignment, and that scares them, because they can't pull you anymore. They can't bait you with guilt, can't dangle approval like a prize you used to chase. You've stopped chasing. You've stopped asking. You've started listening to yourself, to the voice that was always there, quietly waiting behind the noise, behind the roles, behind the expectations. And now that voice is louder than their absence. That's what Stoic freedom is. Not detachment from people, but detachment from the need to be understood by people who were never trying to understand you. Let them wonder. Let them miss the version of you they mistook for weak. You're not angry. You're just done. You're not bitter. You're just busy. Building something they won't see until it's finished. So when the doubt creeps in, when the silence feels heavy again, remember this. You were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to return to the fire inside you, to carry your own light through the dark. And when they finally ask, "What happened to you?" you'll smile and say nothing. Because growth doesn't explain itself. It just moves. Stay with us. This isn't noise. It's your return. And the next video, it's already waiting. Same fire, same truth. Let's keep walking.